What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are jumping into X-Men Red issue number 9. I have said this time and time again. Immortal X-Men and X-Men Red are hands down the best stuff coming out of Marvel Comics. Now, if you're not a fan of this X-Men era, you probably are going to disagree with me. But for me personally, the X lines have been fabulous. X-Men Red and Immortal X-Men, these have just been knocking it out of the park, and I am so excited to share today's issues. Now, Marvel released a whole slew of X comics, so over the next couple of days, we're gonna be covering all of it. What I have in store for you today is X-Men Red, Dark Web, and Immortal X-Men. Both in X-Men Red and Immortal X-Men, they throw some twists in, some that we really didn't anticipate. But man, is it beautifully written. We have Abigail Brand, who is entering her endgame, and that entails using Vulcan. The last time that we left off with this comic, we saw Vulcan getting ready to take over as Emperor yet again, in the diplomatic zone, going against individuals like Deathbird, Gladiator, and the Empress herself. This was supposed to be a diplomatic meeting. All of this arranged by Abigail Brand to get everybody into the same room to wipe out the high command using Vulcan. And now we finally get to see that all play out. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so we are picking up a little bit in the past. At the hatchery, we have Vulcan that is getting ready to be rebirthed into the world. Now, there are many individuals that are very much against doing this. The problem is, with Magneto no longer with us, now that he has chosen to stay dead after the events of Judgment Day, they need powerhouses. They remain an Omega short. And Charles Xavier, with all of his freaking hubris, he believes that they can kind of psychologically change Vulcan, that they can make him not some crazed individual. They fully believe that they can bring him back and him be a huge asset to all of Krakoa. But they find that his egg, it just isn't hatching. They're thinking that maybe they have a Kate Pride situation. She had instinctively tried to phase instead of hatch. She needed a psychic jumpstart, something to get her moving. And so when Charles Xavier goes to do this, before he can even touch the egg, we see this egg burst into flame, a giant fire coming out of it. Charles Xavier, he didn't even do anything. You see, Charles didn't put his mind back into Vulcan. Vulcan saw that he was holding on to it, and he came to take it. That is when we see Vulcan arrive, coming out of this egg fully on fire. This was the return of Vulcan. They should have known right then and there that having him back was not going to be a good thing. But Charles Xavier, his hubris has shown time and time again that he thinks he knows everything. He thinks that he has the answers, that he can play God. That is what takes us to present day at the diplomatic zone. Proof that Charles Xavier was wrong. He is here proclaiming himself to be Emperor Vulcan. Gladiator stepping up and letting him know that he is Emperor no more. The days of his rule, they have been stricken from the official memory. And Vulcan lets them know that you can all pretend that I wasn't Emperor. But he does say that those days were not his best work. His best work is yet ahead of him. And he doesn't say this as in a way that he's going to fix everything, that he's going to be a better ruler. If anything, he seems to be like he's going to go more tyrannical. This is when Nova steps up, asking anybody who is X-affiliated why they ever thought it was a good idea to resurrect Vulcan. They resurrected the Mad King during a period where everything is in political unrest. Bringing Vulcan back undoubtedly would start a war. That is when Frenzy lets him know that he came out of the vault alive, asking what were we supposed to do? Throw him back? And Nova's response is yes. A guy like this, you throw him back, you bury it, you make sure that he can never return. You send that guy straight to hell. Gladiator had known about his resurrection. Nova a little bit upset, but Gladiator is very loyal to the throne. And the Empress's father, Charles Xavier, he pronounced Vulcan to be safe. This is when we see Gladiator slowly start to shrivel up and die. An individual who is powered by his confidence. They have an enlarged prefrontal cortex, buzzing with electrical impulses. An Omega level energy manipulator like Vulcan, he can reroute those impulses. That is when Nova lets him know that he is under arrest. He is being charged, telling him to surrender now. And Vulcan, he asks, what are you going to do? Are you going to use the Nova Force on me? And that is when Vulcan, he begins to drain the Nova Force from freaking Nova. This is when Frenzy calls into Brand, an emergency alert, needing sword security to the embassy immediately. But Brand is not answering. Her and Mentello, the two of them are watching all of this unfold. This was all Brand's plan. And she is more than willing to sacrifice Frenzy's life. She is doing all of this, proclaiming that she cares about the soul system, that she is doing this for everybody, that somebody has to play the villain, somebody has to care enough to be the bad guy. And so while all of that is unfolding, we are taken to the World Farm. Stellaris, who just so happens to also be working with Brand. We find Cable and his team, the ones that are working to take down Brand and everything that she is doing, as they fight against Stellaris. He finds himself completely outmatched. That is when his heralds come forth. Manifold, seeing these guys, he knows the kind of power that is inside them. As they take a closer look inside of Manifold, we see his chest open up and a bright light coming out of it. The guy who can literally talk to the universe. They don't know what is about to go down, but they don't like it. As Thunderbird gets his knife ready to do some gutting, we are taken back to the embassy where Vulcan is just laying waste. Nova getting thrown around like a freaking ragdoll. Frenzy may be a very tough individual, but he surrounds her face with flames, taking away the very oxygen that she breathes. That is when Deathbird lets him know that it's not too late to stop, that this isn't what he wants to do, and he is going to regret doing any of this. With Vulcan a little bit upset that Deathbird has become so passive, believing that the fire in her eyes has burnt out, but his fire will burn forever. That is when he turns his attention to the Empress, attempting to burn her alive, as Abigail Brand and everybody watches as the Empress goes up in flames. What we see sitting on that throne is not the Empress. Using image inducers that even do voice, the person that has been sitting in this throne has been Costa. It has been Sunspot. You see, Sunspot knew Abigail Brand was up to something. He wasn't sure what it was, but he played his part. He did what was necessary to keep tabs on everything going on. And when Abigail Brand truly thought she had everybody fooled, she didn't have Sunspot fooled. With Vulcan saying that he will burn Sunspot alive, Sunspot does ask him, "Are you sure?" Both of them being able to eat solar energy. He tells Vulcan, "Why don't you find out which one of us is hotter?" Taking a moment and pausing, Vulcan says that this is nothing more than a distraction, that he is going to find the Empress, he is going to find the Throne Stealer, and he is going to incinerate her down to ash. Knowing exactly where to find her, he takes off into the air, Deathbird mentioning that Vulcan more than likely would have incinerated Sunspot. Sunspot very aware that he probably would have lost this fight, but he doesn't leave out that he is still better looking than Vulcan. For him, this is more of a moral victory. That is what takes us to the Autumn Palace. At this point, Abigail Brand using Mantello, telling him that this is probably a bad idea. They don't know what they are about to go into. This is not a smart move. He lets her know to keep the little telepath out of his head, especially if they are of the Xavier line. Telepaths just anger him as he burns his way through the doorway, saying that he has been dreaming of this moment since before he died. Going into the palace, he does not find the Empress, but he finds Storm. And that is where this issue will end. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. It looks like the Brotherhood of Arakko are playing their part. Originally founded by Magneto, having the likes of the Fisher King, Storm, Costa, all of these individuals. When Costa, he figured out what Abigail Brand was doing, or at least he had an idea of what she was planning. Him and Storm in the background, they plotted, they got ready for whatever Abigail Brand was about to throw at them. And now Vulcan finds himself toe-to-toe with the region of Arakko, the Queen of Storms, the Omega level herself. And this is going to be one hell of a fight. Omega level Storm versus Omega level Vulcan. This was beautifully done. Absolutely fantastic, and I am so excited for Storm to finally get some more spotlight. Throughout the entirety of Judgment Day, we saw her only for a couple of moments, being nothing more than a supporting character to Magneto. Now, don't get me wrong, I get why they did it. Magneto was sacrificing his life. He was about to die. That was the event where Magneto no longer exists. So they wanted to push the spotlight onto him. But now that he is gone, our girl Storm is finally getting the treatment that she deserves, and I cannot wait to see her mop the floor with Vulcan. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your theories. If you would like to get caught up on everything going on with X-Men Red, be sure to check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It is going to get you completely caught up on everything going on with this series. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership, much like Patreon, having 5 different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to getting free comics every single month. Not only does that help out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. Now, if you are unable to do any of that, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.